welcome back to the class, everyone. And once again, we have called it. While this one was probably rather obvious, so it's not that great of a feat, we do have a brand new Mandalorian tank coming to game, and that is Vizsla. But there are a lot of things I want to talk about today with the introduction of this new character, but realistically, we're only going to be providing more questions than we are answers. While it is confirmed that we are getting him in game as a tank and a Mandalorian, we are not getting him as a leader because, as will be mentioned many times throughout this video, we are getting a new legendary Bo-Katan who will actually be earned through an epic confrontation. Again, more on that later, but a little bit on this character to begin with. I want to say, number one, very cool, super cool character that we've gotten in 3 seasons as a Mandalorian now, who really shined particularly in the last season. He is definitely a tank, not just in size, showing that he can take a lot of hits, but it comes down to his character as a person, that he's willing to lay down his life and sacrifice himself for his Mandalorian brothers and sisters. I don't want to go too far into the kit, but they did specifically design him for Mandalorian teams, so that's kind of his only tag, which it's a little bit of a bummer he doesn't have the scoundrel tag, not because I think he's like the most scoundrelly scoundrel ever, but because there's some specific synergy out there that exists currently with our second iteration of Mando, the Beskar armor one, that wants to be with scoundrels and doesn't really care if you're a Mandalorian or not. That being said, he doesn't want to just work with our Mandalorians. He wants to work specifically with light side Mandalorians. This was really the biggest key towards him coming in the game in the first place, because they have already specifically separated out Gar Saxon and Imperial Super Commander to work with dark side Mandalorians. So for whatever reason, CG is gearing up to have one specific dark side Mandalorian team and one light side Mandalorian team. Again, the light side should be led for the upcoming Bo-Katan Mandalore epic confrontation. I do find it interesting that they're able to call her Mandalore, because that is a really big title from lore that I don't think we have legitimate conversation she has received that title, other than the fact that she has rightfully wielded the dark saber, which they kind of do go hand in hand. So yeah, he's a tank. He's gonna have the buff resilient defense. Again, I don't want to take too much time into his kit, just because it's kind of complicated and there's really no point learning it right now, because number one, he's a marquee character, so a lot of us aren't going to be able to use him for several months. But on top of that, he's aimed to specifically work with this new Bo-Katan, because as a tank, all the other Mandalorian teams that currently exist in game right now, they have a way to create pseudo taunts that aren't really tanking characters. Like Maul, he will throw a taunt on whoever is the healthiest Mandalorian ally. Bo-Katan, the current Bo-Katan we have in game, has a special ability that allows anyone to taunt, but can also be removed quite easily. So there are a few different ways that with the current Mandalorians we have, you can taunt, but it's not quite as good as having a dedicated taunter, much like the Bad Batch has Wrecker, or Inquisitors have Night Sister. They just have someone who's really good at consistently taunting, and he will be able to do that, and he does look quite tanky. He's getting a bunch of bonuses, not through just his own kit, but also through Bo-Katan herself, or rather the Mandalore Bo-Katan that we're going to be getting in game. So this raises a few questions. Number one, I find it hard to believe this is the only character we're getting for the upcoming epic confrontation. If we do look into the game as well, and just to see how many Mandalorians we currently have right now, we pretty clearly have 5 dark side Mandalorians, or rather, we really have 4, and then CG's ultimate intention, at least in Grand Arena, is for our new Gideon to come in and also play with Maul, Canderous Order, Gar Saxon, and Imperial Super Commando. Jango Fett seems to be pretty clearly slotted, at least in CG's eyes, with Trench. He can also be used with Bounty Hunters and, quite frankly, other Separatist teams. But that leaves a light side team to be Bam, the Armor, and Bo-Katan, and the 2 new characters we're getting. But I wouldn't be surprised if they open the door for maybe one new other light side Mandalorian ally that would come through as a marquee that would also be required for the epic confrontation. Maybe, I believe, Axe Wolves, or the other really kind of prominent Mandalorian light side ally that we saw them have in season 3. He was a pretty cool character. Maybe he could also be a pilot, and maybe later down the road we could even get a Mandalorian fleet. Right now, this seems a little bit of a stretch, because Sabine and Mando are definitely allocated to their proper factions, being Bounty Hunters and Phoenix, and it's not that uncommon to use Mando himself as well as the Armor in other factions as well. Armor is a really good partner for a lot of Galactic Legends with the way she's able to make them immensely tanky. And then Bam has a lot of synergy, as previously mentioned, with Scoundrels, that he can work even well with bounty hunters like Fennec Shand or Scion of Django, Boba Fett. So really, the only free agent the Mandalorians have, at least the light side ones, is Bo-Katan Kryze, which that doesn't end up being enough to make a whole team. So I think we might get another light side out. The other reason I think we might get another light side Mandalorian to go along with this is because it would seem very odd to me to make an entire legendary event being the epic confrontation with just one new marquee character. I'm thinking we're going to need more than that. So we've said it a lot, but for anyone who doesn't quite remember, epic confrontations, we've only ever had 2 of them. They are the General Skywalker event that we are currently looking at, as well as the Malak event. And they have a little bit of differences between the 2 of them, but the main thing is there is a pretty in-depth dark side battle where you have to take Asajj as well as the rest of the droids, and a pretty in-depth light side battle where you have to take Padme and several other Galactic Republic members. The Malak event mirrors it pretty similarly in the sense that in one you have to use Old Republic, and the other side you have to use Sith Empire. So we're seeing this pretty consistent, at least somewhat consistent, in epic confrontations, that you need to have completely built up a dark side faction and completely built up a light side faction of specific characters to be able to go combat. And I think that's going to be the same exact deal for the epic confrontation, except what we're probably going to see are light side Mandalorians like the Armor, Beskar Mando, Bo-Katan, Axe, as well as our new friend Paz Vizsla. And then on the dark side, I think while they could do dark side Mandalorians, that really doesn't make a lot of sense for Mandalorian Season 3, which is where I think this epic confrontation is going to take place. I think what they're really going to do is aim for the Imperial Remnant, which makes me think that we might even be getting more of those, because as it stands right now, the only real Imperial Remnant characters that we have that are super new are Scout Trooper and the new Moff Gideon. And while there's a slight chance, and I really don't think the door is closed to this unless CJ has already said something by the time this video is posted, and maybe they will have, but I feel like Dark Trooper Moff Gideon is on the table to be required for this event. Now, I don't love that for one reason, and one reason specifically, that the first conquest is already gone and passed, meaning a lot of people already chose not to go right after him to get the 110 shards or to even get like gold crates so they could buy the pass and be able to kind of make up ground. So if they were to make him a requirement after things have started, it kind of puts a lot of people at a disadvantage that maybe didn't want to be a disadvantage and would have spent money on the packs to be able to get there, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But at the same time, I think we have to get at least 3 new characters for this to be monetized properly for CG to make some money off of it, because if you look at all the other legendaries that have come out over the last year or two, typically, bare minimum, they have at least 3 new characters coming out that are required to get them going. And I would imagine it would be the same here. So we would have Paz, another light side Mandalorian, and then maybe another Imperial Remnant. I really wouldn't hate, just give us the Flame Trooper. That would be great. I realize he doesn't really have anything to do specifically with the epic confrontation that happens in Mandalorian Season 3, but one more character to just help aid the rest of the Imperial Remnant would be great. Not to mention, that would also, as him being a trooper, that would allow us to make 3 full Imperial Trooper teams, because right now we don't have that capability. If we try to look up our Imperial Troopers, I've talked about this previously, even with our Moff Gideon here, who can kind of help the remnants out, you can't fill 3 full Imperial Trooper teams. You have to really choose which game mode you're in. If you're in TW, you have to go with essentially the new Moff Gideon, and if you're in GAC, you have to go with Iden. But I would like the freedom to be able to use all 3, or at least I would like that freedom to exist in game. Maybe not for myself personally, just where kind of my roster is. And then the last question, and this is ugly. I don't even know if I want to mention this, just because it is not aged well. It didn't age well the day it came out. But for those of you who remember, when General Skywalker and Malak's epic confrontations first hit the game, you were only able to unlock them at 5 stars at the time. And what you had to do, gosh, this was terrible. You had to farm the rest of the character through Get One currency. For the longest time, all up until very recently, they've been added to the MK2 store, and I think even a little bit before that they were added via crystals. But this was the only way to do it, which really was not a good system. Number one, the high spenders in the game who wanted to just drop however many, hundreds or thousands of dollars to get the character were essentially capped if they were spending the currency like I think CG wants us to. That's why they have been capping them. And then on top of that, it just kind of felt bad to do all that work to relic up 10 characters or whatever it was. Maybe not relic, but now you'll probably need to relic them to only get half the character, especially 5 stars. If they're 5 stars, you can't gear 12 them. If you can't gear 12 them, you can't put 60 mods on them, and the character's just a fraction of what it's typically supposed to be, unless they're like some weird support that stealths. But even then, you can't even put a Datacron on it. So I really hope that this epic confrontation does not have that, or if it does, no, I just hope it doesn't. And I don't know what it would be. It probably wouldn't be get 1. It probably wouldn't even be get 2. It would probably be get 3, which I guess that would at least fix the problem that we would all get it kind of at the same time, because this is capped and you can only have so much ready. But man, just if people go through the work to get the 3 new marquees or whatever and relic up whoever and their mom, yeah, don't give us a 5-star character, CG. That, I guess, is my big request here. Yeah, so that is what's happening. Paz is coming to the game. Bo-Katan shortly after him, and I think we're gonna get some more to kind of fill in the holes until then. And yeah, maybe don't slack on Moff Gideon, but hopefully we'll get confirmation on that soon. Thank you guys for watching. Till the next time, stay awesome.